Well, as we were walking up here, TC told me a physicist, a biologist, and a computer scientist walked into a bar. I didn't know if that was an observation from last night or a joke. He tells me it's a joke, but he didn't tell me the punchline yet, so you're going to have to come to our poster outside, I guess, to find the answer to that. I'm Justin Simonds. This is TC James, my partner. We're from Hewlett-Packard. We work in the Enterprise Solutions and Architecture group, and we're here to talk to you quickly about the Analytic Cloud. TC?
Thanks. Before I get started, and I noticed that the gentleman from AMD was walking out, I wanted to take issue with something he said earlier, which was that cloud was a mythical buzzword. In fact, it's a real buzzword, and there's lots of buzz behind it, but there's nothing you want to work with. There are two things that I want you to consider as we're kind of going through this today. And that's what cloud can do for you, and then what you can do with big data. You all know what you can do with big data from a volume perspective. When we go out and talk to certain, different kinds of clients, a lot of them only think of big data in terms of volume. I have more. I'm going to have more. They don't necessarily think about how they can monetize it in a different way. And I'll freely admit that where we come from, I used to work for a gentleman named Mark Hurd at Hewlett-Packard. And I loved working for Mark because when I worked for Mark, the stock price was 3 times what it is today. But the thing about working for Mark is if you weren't working on something that had a positive business outcome, you would wind up like the target in Tim Fraser's fusion chamber this morning. A lot of light, a lot of heat, a lot of pressure. Eventually you disappear from the HP landscape. So the only thing that we want to talk about is how you optimize a business outcome today. You all know the difference between velocity and I use this train wreck to describe in different organizations how they view big data today. The thing I want you to take under consideration at this moment is low latency and high latency loading, low latency requirements going forward, because real time is all about situational awareness.
And we're going to take a second here just to talk about one aspect of that, which is velocity. And I think that was highlighted today and through a number of the talks. And if we look at traditionally what happens in event processing here, some business event occurs and it takes some time to get into the analytical system. After it's in, it takes some time to be processed. And after it's finally processed and we'll say an alert is sent to an executive with decision-making authority, there's some delay or latency there for them to actually make the decision. So as time marches on here, when the event occurred, we may have had 10 different actions we could have possibly taken on the event. As time goes on, that may be reduced to 5, to 3, to 2, to maybe 1 thing. As was mentioned earlier today, the best thing to do is automation, and automation is going to become more and more critical as the velocity increases. So what we want to do is really bring the business decision as close as possible to the business event that takes place.
So last but not least, if you have time to come out and join us for a moment, we'd like to talk about this in a little more detail. But what you see on the screen above you is basically different sets of inputs. And certainly the inputs on the left of the screen are not meant to be all-encompassing. But it's the whole idea of taking things, internet and social media type functions, anything that comes from a standard ERP environment, bringing them into a fit-for-purpose kind of platform. Instead of one platform or trying to shoehorn things into a single platform. The idea of this is actually something that we borrowed from Mark Beyer at Gartner around logical data warehousing. The idea that different platforms do things differently and they do them well, so why not leverage those rather than trying to put everything into one particular environment. So I think what you'll find, although this happens to have some HP products associated with it, the things that are most important about it are being able to do real-time analytic processing, operational BI, and big volume plus non-relational type data.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is that one platform can't handle all those different ideas now within business intelligence. The idea behind this analytic cloud is to sort of disintermediate the end user from having to deal with which particular system they need to go to here. So we set it up as a service through user portal and and cloud software. And we're working with HP Labs on this thing we've got up here called O3, or optimizer of optimizers. We're trying to determine if HP Labs can come up with the idea of, 2 seconds. Well, I guess we'll talk more at the poster. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.